So, on this channel, we've been covering a lot of the battle between YouTubers and journalists, as journalists seem to be getting a little bit more aggressive with certain YouTubers. Last week, we talked about Taylor Lorenz going after Mr. Beast for allegations that he treats his workers like shit. Here we have a similar story right here from James Charles, although in this case, I'm not necessarily going to be defending James Charles, because I don't really know what's going on here. However, I will be going over his Twitter video that he released last night, which was particularly interesting, both in terms of what was in the video and the journalist's reaction to it. Now, just a little bit of background here. James Charles is speaking out for the first time about a lawsuit against his former employee. The 21-year-old YouTube star and beauty guru is being sued by ex-employee Kelly Rockland, who worked as his video editor and then as his producer. She's claiming wrongful termination, and there's also claims about poor treatment, failure to provide overtime pay, and more. James says he feels like he's being blackmailed by her. Now, currently, and this is something James addressed in his video, he's getting canceled for an old Twitter account of his that he had to reserve an old Twitter at, apparently got hacked according to him, and tweeted at Jeffree Star saying sup N-word with a soft A. Which, to be honest, alright, it's a soft day, alright? Give James Charles some credit here. If he's the one who tweeted this out, which I don't believe that he is, but let's say that he was the one who tweeted this out, alright? He's a man of class, alright? He only used the soft day. Give him a break. Anyway, take a listen to this video right here.
For the last 2 years now, I've been dealing with an ongoing lawsuit from one of my previous employees. This is something that I have never spoken about, I've never mentioned, because I wanted to keep it private out of respect for her, and the fact that it's literally an ongoing litigation, but she's now speaking about it, which is just perfect time considering everything else that's going on.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot, she is speaking out about it. Watching the same people who screwed me over massively end up in deep scandals isn't news to me, it's karmic debt. 1-1 going for 2-on-2 because I'm all about law and order. And if you have no idea what she's talking about there, apparently, Kelly, the same person suing James Charles, is a former employee of social media star Erica Costell, and went through a lawsuit with her over her employee mistreatment. So she's just getting just dubs on dubs, apparently, and James Charles is next on the chopping block.
This person worked for me and then was later promoted to my producer, which means she was no longer editing, she was helping me film videos, and was like my right-hand person for a salary of $72,000 a year. She only worked for me for about 6 months and then was let go, and now I am being sued. The suit is all online, you can read through it if you really want to, but it basically alleges that she was wrongfully terminated, overworked, and underpaid, all of which are untrue. The fact that this is like even attempting to become a narrative, it makes me feel like sick to my stomach because it is wildly untrue, and I am so grateful for the people around me. The case also kind of makes it seem like she's just trying to get back like the wages that she feels like she should have been paid for her work, which I wish were the truth, because in reality this suit is actually for hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you're not familiar with cases like this, they're unfortunately pretty common in like the entertainment industry, but they usually don't actually make it to court, which may sound weird, but it's for two different reasons. The first one being they are ridiculously long. This was filed 2 years ago. People are only finding out about it like now, but we are not even close to getting an actual court date yet. So it is a long process and quite a headache. Because it's so long, reason number two is it gets really expensive really fast for the defendant, which in this case is myself. So most of the time the defendant will settle, which basically means paying an amount of money to the person making the suit to just drop it and move on. This past week, I was reached out to for comment about a news article that is coming soon, and I learned that she is talking to the press about this lawsuit and what it was like to work for me as an employee. However, she's adding a ton of absolutely ridiculous, absurd, untrue, defamatory, just the craziest claims you could ever imagine, and in my opinion, it's an attempt to pressure me into making a much higher settlement offer. Once again, I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Now, wait a minute. I'm actually really surprised James Charles is making this statement publicly, preemptively. I mean, this video, I watched this last night while I was streaming Fortnite of all things, and it really read off as like a panic video, something that James Charles feels like he has to get in front of. If you don't know what he's talking about, the person suing him is talking to the press, and pretty soon we're going to see a big article supposedly detailing her experiences of mistreatment working for James Charles. So he's trying to basically come out and be like, look, before this thing comes out, let me let y'all in on what's going on here. And he's basically saying that she's going to the press to try to get James to freak out and settle for a higher cost, basically. Which is certainly a fine conclusion for him to draw to. I don't know if I would make that conclusion publicly on my Twitter account, for everyone to see. I feel like that's a little bit of a risky move there, to say the least. It does make sense, though, because last week we did see actually the same people involved with this article come out with an article last week, particularly Taylor Lorenz, who came out with an article talking about Mr. Beast and how he quote-unquote mistreats his workers. James Charles mentions that this lawsuit is actually 2 years old and people are just finding out about this now. Well, the article about Mr. Beast talked about editors that were complaining about mistreatment in Mr. Beast's office, 2 years ago. This is back in 2019. So I just find all this stuff very interesting. Let's keep listening.
Everything from I was so lazy, she had to force me to get out of my bed and brush my teeth, and without her I would have never made a single video or a single dollar. But also things much more serious and disgusting, such as that I used to say the N-word around her all the time. This is just perfect, convenient timing as well, considering this past weekend, my old Twitter account, which I have not accessed since 2016, and only has one tweet, I guess was hacked last year, and the hacker publicly tweeted somebody the N-word, and people actually thought that it was me.
Of course, as we were talking about earlier, his old Twitter account that he had made purely just to reserve his old Twitter before it changed James Charles with just, one S. It tweeted out the N-word apparently. Although it tweeted it out back in September 10th, and I guess it went unnoticed until now. I don't know how that flew under the radar, but I guess it did.
And I don't want this article to come out and just blindside people, because it is going to come out. And when it does, I know that it's going to be bad. And I totally understand that people are going to think whatever they want to, regardless of what I say, regardless of what receipts, screenshots, legal documents that I pull. And that's okay. That's, everyone has a right to their opinion. I just want to give some sort of explanation so you guys know, and hopefully you're able to see this and what's happening here for what it really is.
And I'll cut the video there. The rest of the video is what I read as like a panic move right here. He knows something's going to come out. He knows what people think of him now already, regardless of this information, and how this information will only add to just shitting on his public image. So he's basically saying, like, please, before this video comes out, I'm just letting y'all know, trying to get ahead of it so that he can basically damage control and minimize the effect of this article that it's going to have on his career. I don't know the full extent of what is going to be in the article. The worst thing that he seemed to describe was him running around the office saying the N-word. That on its surface sounds like a laughable claim. Like, can you imagine this guy running around just screaming the hard R N-word at his employees? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It just doesn't really, that allegation at least doesn't really add up. If there was mistreatment in the workforce, then hey, I'm all for justice, but I'm a little bit burnt out on this specific allegation, specifically because of the Mr. Beast allegation, where last week we had a guy who came out and said that, 2 years ago he came out, and this was re-reported last week, but you had a guy who said that him being called a retard because he didn't do his job correctly counted as abuse in the workforce, which is not abuse in the workforce. If I were James Charles, I would not have made this video or posted this at all, though, because this seems like it's only going to fuel the drama channels more. Well, myself included, I guess. Taylor Lorenz came out on Twitter, who's one of the journalists who works at the New York Times. She said, James Charles returned to Twitter to share a lengthy explanation of a lawsuit he said he's in with a former employee alleging that she was wrongfully terminated, underworked, and underpaid. Says his ex-employee is pressuring him to pay settlement money. James Charles said he won't settle the lawsuit and plans to take things to court, but until then, he's dealing with the court of public opinion, and that's not a court that's on his side right now. She then links to Kat Tenbarge, who seems to be taking to the case, and she even released a series of more interesting, now deleted tweets. Actually, these tweets were deleted pretty quickly from when they were posted. She wrote to James Charles, absolutely not, story coming soon, literally cannot believe this. Okay, well, yeah, you paid your creative director $72K after a raise. We'll start there since you're the one putting it out. More soon. Blackmail is a criminal allegation, and a really crazy and stupid one to make. Now, given how anti-journal I am, just based on their track record of slandering YouTubers or posting half-assed claims about them and masquerading it as news, I'm more inclined to be on James Charles' side here, but this is a situation that I do not know the full extent of the details in. For all I know, I guess he could have been abusive. I guess he could have run around the office screaming the N-word and all kinds of other horrible claims, all right? So I don't really know here. I will say this, all right? Risky move to post that Twitter video out last night to try to jump under, and wet the flames a little bit. I feel like you're just adding fuel to the fire, and I feel like it's probably not a good idea, but James Charles, maybe he just feels like he's at, he has no other option. He needs to come out and say this. Very interesting stuff. I'll be very curious to see what this article includes when it does come out. Until then, folks, my name's Augie RFC. This is Red Fox Comms, and I will see you guys later. Follow me on Twitter, @AugieRFC, for more hot takes and memes. Peace out.